A lot of people, when they prepare, they're too busy buying food, gold, silver. And yet, you've got the teacher right in front of you. Right now in New York, they're flooding. It's a total mess. And I've heard some people say, well, why did they leave their cars in the water? Why don't they get them? Well, the problem is they were at work. They owned more than one car. And they couldn't get home. And by the time they did get home, the car was floating in the water or was flooded and useless. And the circumstances dictate what you should do. Now, if you know the weather's coming in and it looks pretty bad and they're saying flooding, you should take heed and learn that. If you're in a big city, well, it's easy. Just drive your vehicles to the top of a parking garage and park it up there, and you're probably okay as long as it don't cave in. But one thing's for sure, it still does not leave out having a bug out bag. A lot of those people are leaving their houses because it's flooded. And depending on the water, it's really not super bad. I mean, if you move stuff from the lower level to the top level, I mean, your stuff won't get destroyed and you'll probably be okay. But probably one of the best things you could have that probably a lot of people don't have is a good thick garbage bag. If you were to actually, take a 50-gallon garbage bag and start shoving your clothes in there and roll it 2 or 3 times and then tie it off, everything in that bag is going to be completely waterproof. So if you were leaving your house and the water's coming in, you have time. You could start packing everything as much as possible. You want to get everything as high as you can, but sometimes it goes over top of that. And if you got most of it packed in the garbage bags, and you'd have to have a good 2 or 300 garbage bags in stock, then probably when you return, everything would be fine and not damaged or destroyed. But let's say you're leaving and you throw a backpack on and you start heading out and you're walking, in water up to your waist. Um, your backpack's going to get wet. And there's no foolproof thing for staying dry when you're backpacking, hiking, whatever. Everybody will just say, enjoy the suck. And that's about it. And that's true. But you have to keep your gear dry. And that's a must. Like in my backpacks, I have a trash compactor bag. They tend to be a little bit thicker, usually 2.5 mil compared to 2 mil. And I test my compactor bag. I literally put some towels in it and try to blow it up. And then, I roll it up the best I can. And then I put it in the bathtub and try to stick it in the tub to see if there's any holes, any stretches in it. And you have to do that on a constant basis. Or you could even double up. And I have done that. If the weather looks pretty bad, I'll double up. And I'll do that. But you could go for a two-level system. And what I mean by that, for example, this is a Scenic Summit bag. And in here we have my quilt. Now my quilt has down feathers, okay? And I can't afford this getting wet whatsoever. So not only do I have a Sea to Summit bag, but I've also got a trash compactor bag in my backpack. So I've got double the waterproofing. So once I set up my tent, I pull everything in. It could be pouring rain. And now I start to take everything out. When I take out my quilt, it's completely dry. There's no way it's wet at all. And that's important. If you've got, if you're leaving your house in New York, for example, and you're heading out and you're going to go get a motel, or you're going to go stay with friends, you're going to stay with family, whatever, until this passes, you're not going to be carrying tents and sleeping bags and stuff like that in your, backpack. You can go get a Teton $100 backpack and it will be just fine. Now, what are you going to be carrying? Well, you're going to be carrying probably clothes for 2 or 3 days. You're probably going to be carrying, toiletries. Hopefully, you're taking your documents, your mortgage papers, your everything you need in case it gets damaged and you have to replace them. Um, basic stuff like that, you may be going to a motel that's 2 blocks or 4 blocks away. Your area may be flooded, but it may not be flooded there. And in that case, you're going to need some cash. Unless you're going to take some freeze dried food in it and a little stove, and you're going to cook in your room and eat freeze dried food for a few days until things pass. But right in front of our eyes, you see what you need to prepare for. And you need to do it in levels. Everybody believes nothing going to happen. A lot of people have had say to me, "Oh, you got a bunker, you're fine." I'm not fine. This can flood down here. I mean, when you're lower than the ground upstairs, you can flood. Now, I have backups. I have pumps. I have other things just in case I flip a switch, everything starts pumping out in hundreds and hundreds of gallons quickly, if that happens. But I never leave anything to guesswork, or I never leave anything to say, "I'm fine. I'm good." You know, I don't do that. 90% of the majority of the stuff I have down in this bunker are on shelves. If you see shelves behind me, there's very few things on the floor. I have containers on the floor with lids. Just looking around, there's really not much on the floor. Even my dog's cage that she sleeps in is about this far. A good, I don't know, good 6 inches off the ground. I have a 2x4 with her cage on top. So even if I was to get this much water down here, she could be in that cage and be fine. And that's on purpose. I'll yell cage. She runs directly to her cage. She is trained to do that. Understand that. It takes less than a second. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if people are yelling outside. I don't care what's happening. She hears that word. She runs for her cage. That's her home. I shut that cage door. Now I know I've got this much room to start getting things organized, is what I have. And this way she doesn't get soaking wet. Keeping my dog dry is very important. I mean, when you get wet, you get sick. And that's all there is to it. I do have a 3-layer system when I go backpacking, to where if I know I'm going to be in the rain for 3 days, I do my best to try and stay dry. But the problem is you're not going to stay dry completely. And the other problem is a lot of people say, well, get a raincoat. A raincoat's garbage. You'll sweat in a raincoat like no tomorrow and make yourself cold when that starts cooling off. You try to stay dry the best you can, but it's truly not going to happen. Your major objective should be keeping things dry in your backpack, because that's your life. Now, when it starts raining, I'll yank, I'll have a t-shirt on. I'll have my nylon pants on. I'll have my no socks with my feet inside my shoes. I know my shoes are going to get wet. I know those pieces of clothing are going to get wet. Now, I do have a poncho, and the reason I have a poncho and not a raincoat is because a poncho, as it hangs down, air gets into it and it's nice and cool. And it keeps me dry to a certain extent. Now, I could leave my backpack on. I could sit down on the ground and curl up to a tree with my back up against the tree, and I could stay dry. I mean, I've been in downpours to where, downpours for a good 10, 15 minutes hard, and then it peters off. And I won't walk then. I'll just sit with my back up against the tree with the hood up and just kind of wait the 10 or 15 minutes. But if you have a backpack and you say, okay, I'm good, I got it all packed up with everything I think I need, well, you're wrong. All that stuff should be in a trash compactor bag or a couple garbage bags. You should have a couple garbage bags inside your pack either way. You can cut them, use them for drop cloths and just about anything. Put them under your tent, whatever you want. I mean, there are so many versatilities with a trash bag. It's unbelievable. And it's super light. But I'll have the trash compactor bag inside my backpack. Then I'll have the Sea to Summit bag for anything that's important, like my quilt, my clothes, anything is super important and needs double protection just in case the trash compactor bag fails. And then I have the poncho that goes over top of me in the pack. So I got a 3-step process for keeping myself dry. Now, in New York, if I was walking out of there with my backpack on, the whole bottom of that bag is going to be submerged. Now, I could hold it above my head, set it on my shoulders. I mean, there's other ways to try and keep it dry. But you might as well expect everything inside that pack is going to be soaking wet. And that's very important. But if you take the precautions of using trash compactor bags, garbage bags, Sea to Summit bags, and you put them in your bag, the main stuff you need to stay dry is going to stay dry. And that's very, very important. You could take a duffel bag, you don't even need a backpack, and double bag it with 2 trash bags and put everything in it. And as you're walking through the flood, you can just set the duffel bag right on top of the water and pull it beside you. And now it don't weigh nothing, it'll be floating. And it doesn't matter if this thing gets wet because everything inside is double plastic. And you should be concerned about that. It's the disasters that are coming that are going to affect your life. It could be a house fire. What would you do in that situation? Do you have your bag ready to go at the door? I mean, within seconds, your house could go up. Can you run to the door, grab that bag, and keep going? Do you have extra dog food, extra cat food? Do you have things in there for your animals? Do you have a couple freeze dried in there? Do you have your trash compactor bags in case you're running out and it's pouring rain? House is still burning, pouring rain. You should really, I believe, your first steps, you should be preparing for the elements, fires, floods, earthquake, and these type of things. You know, if you live in an earthquake area like California, I would have, probably a good 100 2x4s on the side of my house covered up, keep them from rotting. Because you can use that to brace things up. You know, if I need to, I'd go out in the middle of the street, and if all of a sudden my neighbor's house, I could go in there and start bracing it up and maybe get them out. But every disaster requires something different. And the only way out is you have to be quick. And you have to understand what you're trying to prepare for. Everybody that makes these so-called bug-out bags, they act like they're going back into the wilderness, which I never understand. If you got a vehicle and it's not drowned, great, you can take whatever you want if it's ready to go and it doesn't take you very long. But if it's like New York flood, if you're forced to walk in water up to your waist to get to a motel, a friend's house, or whatever, well, you don't need a tent. I mean, really, you need some basic stuff on where you're going. If you're going to a friend's house, you really don't want to be using their stuff. So you kind of want to have your own toothpaste and all that stuff ready to go and organized. And you'll see when they come in and they say flash flood, it comes in fast. I mean, usually a couple minutes. It's not something where you got a half a day to get ready for. So they call it a bug-out bag, but I don't know, emergency bag would be a better word for it. Where if you have to leave and go for a couple days and then come back, what would you put in that emergency bag? You know, do you have a blanket you like? Put this stuff in. You can put a whole trash compactor bag or a whole garbage bag inside your backpack and then put everything inside of that. You could double it. And then you know when you get out there, it doesn't matter if it's pouring rain, doesn't matter if you're in a flood or what you're in, everything in those bags are dry. And that's very important. When you start taking out coats and stuff like this, that's all wet. It's not very comfortable. So how you prep that bag right from the get-go is very, very, very important. Think of it as an emergency bag. Don't get into these fancy words. Think about it. If I got to leave in a flood and it's pouring rain, chances are it is pouring rain because that's how the flood started. Or if I got to leave when there's a fire, what do I need in that bag? And that's what you're trying to figure out. And it's more than just being comfortable. It's all your documents. You don't want to lose your licenses and credit cards and everything else. You know, you should even have, an extra credit card or two inside your backpack, in case you did lose your wallet. This way you got a backup in case something goes wrong. And you can get your motel or get what you need until you worry about it when you got to pay it back when you get home. But one thing's for sure, I see thousands of so-called bug-out bags on YouTube, and I see very few that have a garbage bag inside their pack and then there's stuff inside. Go get some garbage bags. You'll thank me later. I'll catch you guys on the next one.